Hey, everybody, this is Jeff Allen. Welcome to Who Gave Jeff Allen a Podcast? We're still trying to figure that out. And I'm here with my co-host, Carollynn Xavier, and we have a guest, and she will tell you who that is.
Yeah, the one, the only, Tre Hargett. We're so glad you're here. We love you so much. We're so glad you're here. He's the Secretary of State. I don't exactly know what that is, but I think he's going to tell us it. He's been doing it since 2009, so since I was 19. Proud of you. Thanks for doing that. Appreciate it. And he started as a Republican House leader of the House of Representatives, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is either.
So, I mean, I was a top-ranking Republican in the House of Representatives.
Okay. Is that a good spot?
Some days it was, like being a chief cat herder a lot of days. So
yeah.
It was back when we were not a red state.
Really?
Yeah, we were.
You seem to really battle it out.
Yeah, it was a battle. It was a battle.
Okay, will you tell us what a Secretary of State is? Because I don't really understand.
Now, first of all, I want to find out, you're not elected as Secretary of State.
I'm elected by the legislature.
The legislature.
There's 132 people in the state that vote for me.
So we have a representative state house represented by the people. Yeah. And from that, is it the majority? Or is it the entire?
The House and the Senate come together in a joint convention every 4 years to elect the Secretary of State, the Comptroller, and the Treasurer. Now, the Comptroller and Treasurer are elected every 2 years. I'm elected every 4 years, so I was just reelected to my fifth term. And my term is also opposite that of the governor's. What that means is, the governor wasn't on the ballot in 2024, but me being reelected was determined by who was elected in 2024. So if the legislature had flipped from Republican and Democrat, they would have elected a Democrat Secretary of State in January of 25. 26, the governor's up for reelection, and actually our governor's term limited, so we're going to have a new governor, but I'll be midterm. So that really ensures that pretty much there's always at least one of us left. I hate to call it the top tier of state government if there's massive turnover. And I say top tier state government, keep in mind, if you're looking at the order of succession in state government, the Secretary of State's fourth. That sounds really impressive, but you've watched the Olympics before. I mean, there is no medal for fourth place. I mean, so there's a pretty big drop-off after the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House, all the way down to Secretary of State.
Yeah. And what is your now? My understanding. First of all, how many states do it this way?
A great question. Maine, New Hampshire, and Tennessee. Now, that will not get you a wedge in Trivial Pursuit, so don't feel a need to memorize that. But Maine, New Hampshire, and Tennessee are the three that do it the way we do it with a legislative vote.
Okay, and the rest of them are all elected by?
No. There are some states that it's appointed by the governor, like Virginia, appoints.
Really?
New Jersey appoints. So there are states out there where it's really up to who is in the, Delaware is not where who the governor is in office and appoints their person.
So you have it way harder because you have to convince 162 people?
132.
132.
Yeah, so it's a lot cheaper than running statewide in a statewide election, but it's also it's nerve-wracking too that I don't get to necessarily go out and campaign for a year or two. My job interview is every day and how I do the job, but I have to wait till after the November elections are over. Then I wind up calling the members of the legislature, going to see them and asking for their continued trust to be their Secretary of State.
Okay.
So far, so good.
Coffee every day, for sure. I brought you your favorite.
Yeah. Yard signs don't really work.
Outside your office.
Yeah. Robocalls are a big turnoff.
I would think Cinnabon would work really well.
Yeah.
With some that might. I hadn't thought about that. Thanks for planting that seed. And if anybody's listening now, I'm sure that the expectation, the bar has been raised.
He'll let you know.
I don't want to give you, my nature, but it would certainly get my vote.
Okay, so what exactly?
It doesn't take much to get mine.
Now my concern is 4 years from now, Jeff, you're going to show up with Cinnabon for everybody and say, hey, I should be the Secretary of State.
Yeah, but by then you should be governor, hopefully.
Well, after this interview, maybe I'll know what you actually do. So.
Well, hey, that would be a great goal, isn't
it? Before you get the job.
My understanding, because there have been Secretary of States in the news nationally because of elections, and I remember the name that we don't mention, Soros, was actually funding a lot of his people into Secretary of State to put on positions because of that. If elections got close, then the Secretary of State has power to certify, not certify? Do you have power to certify or not certify?
It's not an option for us. I mean, we certify the results. I mean, that's a basic job duty that I have. I don't think that I would really ever have an excuse to be able to say I disagree with the results if they are what they are. And then
sure you can. Think really hard, man. Come on.
And then the 95 counties have rolled those results up to us, and we total them up. And it would take a court order for us not to do something.
Yeah.
Okay, I have an embarrassing question about your job.
Yeah.
What do you do with LLCs? Because sometimes I get letters from you. And...
Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that. That's really why I'm here today. It's an intervention. So we in the division of business, we have a division of business and charitable organizations inside the Secretary of State's office. And one of the first things whenever somebody decides they want to start a business, like a corporation, a limited liability corporation, a limited liability partnership, or nonprofit corporation, they file those documents with us to start that business. So we've got over 405,000 businesses in the state of Tennessee that are registered with our office. Now, if somebody is a sole proprietor or just what's called a general partnership, so they're not a corporation, none of those what I mentioned, they don't come to our office to do that.
Yeah.
But LLCs register with us in the state of Tennessee.
We should figure out why I'm in trouble at some point, though. Maybe we should.
Are you?
Lunch. Yeah, I think so. I get yellow letters from you. And they're signed. I thought you were just saying, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah, you said that think I'm signing every one of those.
I knew you looked like a felon. I didn't know you were actually a felon.
I didn't know you were actually in trouble. Okay, so you and Jeff just met for the first time today.
Yeah.
But me and you have met before. And I was going to tell Jeff doesn't know how we met the first time. You remember how we met the first time?
I do.
Do you want to tell your side of the story, or you want to tell mine?
Are there two different versions of it? Because we met at the same time, so I hate to think that they're going to be different. But we actually were attending an episode of a taping of Huckabee. I was in the audience, and my wife is a huge fan of yours, and has been following you on Instagram, and my wife was like, "That's her. That's her. I know who that is." And so I'm like, "Dawn, I swear, we don't know who that is." And she finally said, "That's got to be her." And so after the taping was over, and they had introduced me and made a big deal out of me being there in the audience, and after it was over, though, we went over it and got to speak to Carollynn. And I also have a really good friend of mine who's also in the comedy business, has been and knows a lot of probably the same people that you know. And so we kind of hit it off and wound up going to dinner together.
Yeah.
And eating Mexican together in Hendersonville that night, and it was a laugh a minute. I mean, it was a lot of fun. So we bonded over that experience. We blocked her cell phone number. Somehow
I keep getting new numbers.
Somehow it got unblocked, no, we consider Carollynn a dear friend, which might call into question our judgment, but no, that's how we met. Would you agree with that story?
Yeah, I went into Huckabee, and it was my first time there, and I wasn't working it. I just got invited because Lee Hardin was on it.
Oh.
And he was like, "You got to go." And then I see him. He's all in, like, suited up to the gills. He's got a little button that's got a flag.
Really?
Yeah, you were so fancy that night. And I'm like, he's got to be like...
Be a great song, by the way.
It's suited up to the gills.
No, I'm so fancy. You already know. Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So he looks all fancy, and his wife is beautiful, and they're there, and I'm like, oh, they must be real people, like really fancy political people. And I'm like, I don't belong here. And then I went by myself, and because I was alone, I was like, nobody at Huckabee is like, what is this crazy liberal doing here, like a lone gunman? Nobody said anything. There's nowhere for me to sit, and they put all the singles like at the front of the stage while they seat everyone, and then I'm like, there's one seat next to them. And I'm like, oh, please don't sit me next to the fancy political people. I'll be so stupid. Please don't sit me next to the fancy political people. And then they sat me there, and I was sitting there, and then he leans over and he's like, my wife seems to think you're someone from Instagram. Is that true? I was like, yeah. And then he goes, and then I see Dawn has the biggest personality. She had this beautiful dress on and this gorgeous blonde hair. And she's like, I knew it was you.
Yeah, that was true. She's, I told you it was her. Yeah. I've been telling you that.
It was so much fun. And then I was like, did I vote for you? Or, well, how does it after Huckabee did his little spiel? I was like, who did I vote for?
It's funny, when I first met Governor, I told him straight up, I didn't vote for you. Just want you to know, I don't want any thing between us.
Nobody can accuse you of being from the Church of Laodicea. You're not lukewarm.
Right, exactly. I just told him. I said, and we're still good friends. That's the kind of character Gov has. You know. But now that he's won the ambassadorship, I did ask him, do I call you Amb or do I call you Gov? I don't know.
Outside of, we've laughed a bunch and we've gone to like comedy shows and stuff together, but I don't know anything about how you started. Like, how did you just wake up? Did you put on little suits as a little kid? Like, how did that?
That's awesome. That's a great one. So I've always been interested in politics, always interested in government, and frankly, more interested as a vehicle to help other people. To me, that's really what excited me about when I would read, and when I was in grade school, I read about historical figures. I read about people and the difference they made in the lives of others, and thought, hey, that's a place that maybe one of these days I get to do that.
Which person in particular hit you the hardest?
Well, I mean, I liked Washington. I mean, a big George Washington fan, Abraham Lincoln fan, but I also liked people like Rosa Parks and Harriet Tubman. I enjoyed reading about historical figures, JFK, what have you. So it didn't necessarily know a political party or political bent. I just thought that, hey, I have a heart for service. And so I was always interested in that growing up.
Do you grow up in Tennessee?
I grew up in Ripley, Tennessee, about an hour north of Memphis.
And believe it or not.
Yeah, believe it or not. Great tomatoes, by the way. The best tomatoes if you're ever looking around. So, and I went to college at Memphis State. It was Memphis State when I was there.
Were your parents into politics?
You know, I had a grandfather that ran for the county commission. He was on the county commission for quite some time. I had my father, I would not say was in politics. He ran for school board, lost that race, but later on he was the adjutant general the state of Tennessee. And so you had to have some element of politics and political acumen to be able to pull that off. So I would not describe us as a political family. And where I grew up, I mean, frankly, it was a Democrat county. You know, I tell people, if you were a Republican in my county, people knew who you were, and you couldn't field a baseball team.
Yeah.
I mean, so there weren't many of us back then. But
I grew up south side of Chicago.
Oh, wow.
Basically, my father was a union construction worker, and he said, you vote Democrat or I tear up your birth certificate. So I didn't vote. I just, but one of the things I want to ask you went from the state house. So you ran first for the state representative.
27 years old, ran up the state house and served 5 terms in the state house of representatives. Like you mentioned earlier, Carollynn, the last 2 terms I was elected to be the top-ranking Republican in the House of Representatives. I had term limited myself. I'd said no more than 10 years in the state house. A lot of people thought I would run the state Senate. When that seat came open, I just chose not to. Yeah. I had a young child, you know, toward the end of my career, and was really ready, honestly, to be home more. And
I'll tell you, I moved here in '97, and maybe you could speak to this. The contentiousness is really amped up, as far as it goes, because I always thought that there wasn't much of a difference, you know, between the parties in Tennessee. You know, most people were pretty center, you know, leaning one way or the other. There wasn't the contentiousness, and it seems like in the last 5 or so years, nationwide, it's gotten really divisive. And so can you speak to that? I mean, obviously, as someone who's been elected by your peers the 5 terms, you got to be somewhere centered. I mean, you're balanced.
When I first started getting elected, the first time I ran, I got every Republican voted, 1 Democrat vote, and the Democrats voted against me. The next 3 times, I had a few Democrats not vote for me, and then this most recent time, I don't think I got any Democrat votes.
Right.
So I mean, it's changing. I think social media has ruined it in a lot of ways. I think that people in politics and outside of politics, people have their agenda, and they're trying to make sure that everybody hears their version and what they believe is right in that moment, and also not thinking about the long-term relationships that they have to go get things done.
Right.
And that's really the shame. I mean, when I served for 10 years in the House of Representatives, I mean, there were days where, I mean, I was so mad at the Democrats for what they had done, but I could go out to dinner that night and be at a table with several of them, and I could we could kind of dig at each other a little bit, but I still had those relationships, and I still have a lot of those today, but it's harder. There's some people that, when they want to come and give me a hug, I'm kind of shocked when they want to give me a hug, and I'm sitting there thinking, do you not see what you just typed on Instagram 24 hours ago? Are you sure you want to? And I've even had times where I've been with somebody in the opposing party, and I felt like I did them a solid. I said, hey, I'm going to step out of your picture. Here's what you need. So whenever you're running for office, nobody's going to use the fact that you and I are standing in a picture together smiling against you.
I think that's tragic. As a comic, Johnny Carson had a way of looking at it. If you tell a joke on Tuesday about somebody, you should be able to go golfing with them on Wednesday. And I just wrote a book, and I remember the publisher pushing me to basically throw my parents under the bus. They wanted all this salacious stuff about my mom and my dad, and I said, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
If they were alive, I'd want them to be able to read it and at least look at it and go, this is fair. And it doesn't seem like fairness has anything to do with it, or give me a middle ground, and I think you're right, social media, because it becomes, you're playing for the outside, not the inside. And I don't know what I'm trying to ask. I'm just, because someone, obviously you've been around. I mean, you've been here, you've seen the change. You're not new to this. If you were new to it, you just came to it, then this is what you know. So I guess my question is, it hasn't soured you to the point where you're ready to walk away?
Well, it's
he announces his retirement
right here. He's like, that's what I'm looking for.
It's a tough climate. But one of the things that I take a great satisfaction is my job is to be obedient to God. And believe me, I don't get it all. I don't always get it right. I mean, I hadn't been, 100% today. So,
let's talk about that.
And also,
we actually have a priest.
Well, I got
a
whole nother riff about that. But also, I'm trying to be fair.
Right.
And so one of the things that's hard in life is even when somebody's trying to take your head off, God doesn't call us to get even.
Right.
God calls us to just do the right thing in that moment. And so I try to live that way. I have, as I hope you've kind of determined, I have a pretty quick wit.
Yeah.
And I can have a very sharp tongue, and I have to bridle that. I mean, there have been a lot of times early in my career where I said things that were funny for a moment and wrong for a while, then damaged relationships.
Preacher.
So, I try to think about a lot of times when I've got friends that say, well, you should say so-and-so, and let people know about that. I'm like, you know what? That's on them. They're the ones that got to live with that. And, one of the best things that helped me with that, though, was becoming a father. Is before I became a father, I really saw things and like, hey, I want to be right, and I'm going to say whatever I want to say when I want to say it. And after my first child was born, I started thinking, you know what, that person over there, when I cut them down, when I make them feel less than optimal, they got to go home, and they take that home to their wife. They take that home to their kids. They take that home to their dog. They go home and kick the dog. And I'm like, why should I be treating people that way? So
I feel so bad that made me laugh so hard. They go home, they kick their dog.
Well, it's because of Trey.
Well, what's the old saying? Is somebody goes home and they take it out on their spouse, and their spouse takes it out on the kids, and kids take it out on the animals. And
that is actually really interesting.
I've heard that before. And
you were talking about Instagram. I'm sorry to interrupt. You were talking about Instagram, and do you feel like when you got into the political scene, like you were there for a heart to serve, like you were talking about, and your faith played a huge piece in that, and then people bring it to Instagram and social media, and then it's all smoke and mirrors. So it's like, it just solidifies this idea that it's like, oh, well, this is my outward presence. I'm this staunch Republican or this staunch Democrat that wants everybody to think that I'm that person. But you're saying, no, I want to come at it without the smoke and mirrors, and I just want to be a real person with real relationships that still has a heart for service. Do you feel like there's less people that have a heart for service now?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think the views of a lot of politicians are much more at the extremes than they used to be, and I think there's even if their views are not that extreme, because of having who they're having to play to try and get reelected, get their point across, they feel they need to play to those extremes.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of people out there, Democrats and Republicans, that You see one way on Instagram, and then you have a conversation with them. I'm like, well, I'm didn't really realize that's how you felt, but because it's a little milder than what you might have thought to start with, and what you really hope is that everybody's willing to have a conversation about something. And there are people out there, there's a Democrat legislator who stopped by my office the other day who, she and I disagree, and I did back on several things, but I love her. I mean, she's fantastic, and she had brought some people by to meet me, and we were having this conversation, and I said, hey, I know there's days that she's ready to take my head off. She just absolutely cannot agree with me on this. I said, but I also recognize her constituents feel that way too, in many cases. And there are days she does things that I don't agree with. But as long as you know that other person is coming to it with the best of intentions, that makes a world of difference. Whenever somebody's coming into it trying to think about, here's how I'm going to score points, and my goal is just to score points and not really make a policy change, not make a difference, that's really where I had trouble dealing with you at that point.
But after all these years, can you see right through that? Because in entertainment, people that are just trying to use you to better their career or whatever. So do you feel like you kind of have your key on people right when they...
I tend to trust very easily.
Oh, I have that same problem. That's why I'm divorced. High five.
I'm not divorced, to be clear. I'm not high-fiving.
You guys are like that. You're not old, but you're the oldest married people I know.
Well, for all intents and purposes, we got divorced, and then we stayed together. So we had the papers, we notarized them, we were driving, and in 10 minutes, she says, let's go home.
How long have you and Dawn been married?
30 years.
And you guys have 2 boys?
Yeah, 2 boys.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. They have 2 boys, and they've been married 38 years.
38, yeah.
Yeah, but we're talking about trusting easily. I tend to trust until you prove to me that I can't trust you. Mm-hmm. And so there's a group of people, and that's not a huge group out there, but people who I know that they're in it for political points. They are going to do anything they can to take me down, because they believe that's what they have to do in their job to get their point across, and that's up to them. And I just choose to just say, I don't have to deal with that person. I'll be nice to them, but as far as a real conversation, I'm not going to invest my time in that.
Has there been a time where you've really had to go against the grain to abide in your faith, even if it made you uncomfortable? Or Tennessee leans pretty Christian, so it wasn't too bad?
Hey everybody, this is Jeff Allen. I'm calling all golfers. We don't care if you can play or not, man. If you can dust off some old clubs and come on out. June 30th, West Haven Golf Club. We are doing a scramble, raising money for the anti-predator-project.com and the Williamson County Sheriff's Department Trafficking Division. If trafficking is an issue you care about, this is a chance to raise some money and do some good and get a good round of golf in with your buds, man. Anti-predator-project.com, West Haven Golf Club, June 30th. Come on. You know you want to come.
Yeah, I can't really say I've had that pull where I've thought, I really want to do this, but my faith tells me to do that. I mean, I like to think I'm pretty aligned. There are certainly decisions that each and every one of us make every day that if God were to come back today and say, really? That was the decision you made in that moment?
Yeah.
But when I think about politics, I really can't think of those. Now, I can think about moments where I've said things where I wish I hadn't said. Mm-hmm. I can think about the tone in which I said them and realize, gosh, that wasn't very Christ-like.
Yeah.
And that was not the right way to do that. And so I have those moments, of course.
Yeah. Speaking of Christ-like, outside of his office, I wrote this in the notes. I don't know if you saw it, but it's the coolest thing. Right outside of his office, will you share the story of when there was a duel and they shot inside the Capitol?
Oh, you did? I did read it. There was a ricochet mark, or
there's actually a bullet mark up in the banisters that connect the first and the second floors of state capitol. And so during the days of the Confederacy, I should say, in Tennessee, the past days of the Confederacy, when there was the battle over recognizing the freedom and the rights of black men, there were legislators who wanted to leave in order to not, so that they didn't have enough people to vote on that issue, and security, shotguns to get them to go back upstairs and do their job. Yeah, go do your job.
We're talking about like the smoke and mirrors of Instagram.
Yeah.
They used to get shot.
Yeah.
You're going to say that.
Oh, man, you read our history. There were people who were beat downs at the federal level in the chamber. I mean, with canes, they just pounded on people. I mean, it was always gotten contentious, but like you said, they had meals together. You'd finish up and okay, man, we battled, but there was enough respect for one another. And my thing with the social media, which is why I think it's gotten the way it has, is I started on Twitter when it opened up, and I realized really quick I wasn't made for Twitter. I'd make a comment, and then they'd hit me from every side, and I'd make 2 volleys and realize I'm bored. And then I'd ask people, because they'd call me, all these ad hominem things, and you go, "What's your end game?"
Yeah.
And they go, "What do you mean?" I go, "Are you trying to change my heart and my mind?" Calling me those names is not exactly the way to go. I'm just telling you how I'm wired. So are you able to just let it roll off if they attack you?
I've got a lot better. I don't know my Twitter passwords. So
good. Good.
I don't get on there and look at that.
No, but I'm even in the chamber where if they do it face to face, where they,
I have a lot of respect if somebody walks up to me and just says what they're thinking about me and says, "Hey, I disagree with that." And some of the people who I really have had a hard time with politically, I actually have respect that they will sometimes come and just say, "Hey, I don't like this, and here's what I believe you're trying to do," and we can get nose to nose over a little bit. And there's one legislator who one night, I did something that they really thought there's something nefarious. I was trying to uphold the law. It was not a well-known law, and they were screaming at me, and I was screaming at them. And I wound up a couple weeks later calling them and said, "I yelled at you, and I shouldn't have yelled at you." And I said, and that's my fault, and I shouldn't have done that. And to their credit, they says, "I shouldn't have yelled at you either." Said, I still don't agree with you.
Right.
I still don't understand why you did what you did, but I shouldn't have yelled at you. And even during some of my darkest times, I like to think I've done this for other people on the other side of the aisle too, that I had a lot of Democrats who reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm praying for you. Hey, I'm thinking about you. Hey, I wish I could vote for you politically. I can't." I've called people on the other side of the aisle during this last election and said, "Don't put yourself in political harm's way for me. It's going to be okay. You don't want to vote for me. If you can't, even if you want to vote for me, it's probably not the right vote for you. Let's just all move on and get past this."
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, maintaining those relationships.
Yeah, I had a club owner years ago. I said some harsh things to, and the guy that booked me was out of Atlanta. This was in Texas. He called me and asked me if I said those things, and I said I did. And I called him back after we hung up. I said, "I want to apologize if I said anything that put you in a compromising position with the guy in Texas. For that, I'm sorry. But I said, given the same set of circumstances, I'd probably say the same thing. But I didn't mean to put you in the middle of one."
Wow.
I did not realize that by me saying those things drove you into the conversation. But given the same set of circumstances, I'd probably react the same way. But I do apologize for that. And that's the way adults should. We all make mistakes. But again, when you get in the public, it's interesting. All these videos come out of people who've been in certainly the federal level for 50 years, 40 years. And they were saying things 20 years ago that they're totally against today. And you see the video and you go, do they have any desire to come out and at least answer why they flipped or changed? Or does that come up in private conversations when you're sitting and go, "Hey, look."
Well, I watched.
And by the way, you did mention something too. I want to.
Yeah, I watched.
What's the obscurest law that's been on the books since 1841?
I don't know. I don't even know how to get into that. I'm not going to dig that deep. But I watch the news like you do. Yeah. And there are things that I've seen people here in Tennessee who, when they were first elected, they felt one way. When they were leaving, they were totally different. I can go back to votes that I made when I first got in the legislature and statements that I made, and less than 10 years later, I made a vote that was in contradiction of that. I'll give you an example of one. my first term, I'm 27 years old, not enough life experience, and somebody says to me about having voting rights restored, for a felon to have their voting rights restored after they finish their sentence. And I thought, well, losing your voting rights is part of the punishment for that, and very black and white to me. And after I served in, finally, my last year, there was a bill that came up about changing the ability of felons to get their voting rights restored and to streamline that a little bit, make it a little bit easier. And I voted to do that.
Right.
And so it was really 8 to 9 more years of experience and hearing real life stories, often having, probably for me, also seeing other people go through different things in their lives, so realizing that things aren't always as black and white as you think they are. And so my vote changed on how I felt about that. And so I also try to give grace whenever I see somebody on TV who says one thing today, but they were different 10, 15, 20 years ago. Now, I do get concerned whenever they're one way today, but 30 days ago, it was a totally different line.
Right, but you also have a reason why you changed.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the hardest things for, I think, officials sometimes is recognize that, hey, you may have changed your method of thinking on an issue. The value of going back and talking to your constituents and explaining why your vote changed or your reasoning changed, to help people walk through that with you. This is really a bad example, but I want to use it. Back when, you mentioned almost being divorced, and Lord knows there were times where I didn't think that Dawn and I were going to make it to year 10.
I was going to ask you,
maybe
how does she feel about you?
She's great. I mean, wives take it harder than...
I was going to say, I know
spouses take it harder. Because, there are things that I've had to tell Dawn over the years. I'm like, hey, you got to let that go. That when you got to let that go.
And she's a firecracker.
And that person's our headspace.
That's scary.
But there are times when you are telling a family member or a friend about, you won't believe what my spouse did, and you won't believe this and what we're going through. And then, 2 days later, you and your spouse are good again, and everything,'s good. But you typically don't go back to your friend or your family member and say, hey, all that stuff I said, we're good. So disregard that. So your constituent at the same time hasn't had the opportunity to kind of walk through that and see your evolution of reasoning.
Yeah. Do you feel like your faith plays a big part in that? Because I know you when you use that analogy about felons and stuff, I always was like, yeah, lock them up. Who cares? I was super pro death penalty. And then when I became a believer and had the idea of redemption and God's grace and growth and mercy, and somebody that's actually unbelievably close to me, a family member, became a felon and lost their right to vote. And it was just one of those things where it was mixed medication, was driving, got super erratic with the cops. And not saying that that's an excuse, but it was just like, truly, these things came into place and this happened. And now it's like, there's no going back. And it's just, so anyways, did your faith play a part in it? And have you grown in your faith during, you mentioned the dark times. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about those, but we talk a lot about our dark times. There's a lot of them. Did that kind of mold and shape you? Did it make you closer to God? Did God bring you through it?
I really think that during those dark times, you really have an opportunity to lean into your faith. I think, unfortunately,
it's a gift.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when things are really good, you kind of say, hey, God, I got this. God, go get a cup of coffee. I'm good for a while.
It's my will.
Yeah, I'm good. And so I think whenever you go through really difficult times, and, we all have those. I mean, some more serious than others, that God is there for you. God's always there for you, but I think we probably seek Him out more in those difficult times than we do when times are good.
Yeah, I'm doing a thing in my show about Tikkun Olam, which is in the Jewish faith. The way I set it up is, in the Jewish faith, when you get on your knees and complain to God about a broken world, His response to you is, yeah, I know. It's not like He's up there going, what?
Yeah.
Who told me?
I was so focused on Jeff's 3-foot putts, I completely lost sight of that human trafficking thing. So His response is, what are you doing to repair what's broken? And I think that He just wants to hear from us. And the longer I walk in my faith, the more I realize it is that simple. He just wants to hear from us. Our pastor did a whole sermon about knocking, and his example was, my kids know our bedroom door is closed. It's off limits. But if they want us, they'll knock and 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 they'll knock until someone comes and answers that door. And he said, that's the image I have. He has a special needs kid. And he says, I pray every day of my life for my son to get up out of that chair. Every day, 15 years, morning and night. I want him to get up. That's what I'm honoring him because that's what he said. You know.
Well, and we know that our God's powerful enough to do anything that He wants to do, and so I love that. I'm going to use that story you just gave and that expression about knocking, and He expects us to have that relationship with Him. He expects us to ask. He expects us to talk to Him. I got to tell you, sometimes over the years, I have found myself in prayer thinking, God, that sounds petty. God, you've got so many other things to worry about. You're worried about human trafficking, and I'm worried about this. And I remember going back to my very first race in 1996, and I can remember praying at night, and seriously, I would say, no, God, I want to win. I said, I would like to win. I said, but if you think I need a good, and I'll paraphrase, a good butt whipping, I said, I'll take it. I'm not going to like it,
right?
But I'm waiting for whatever your plan is. And I think that's the hardest thing a lot of times is recognize that He is so much wiser than we ever thought about being. His plan for us is so much greater than anything we could ever have for ourselves. And trying to turn that over and trying to say, hey, I don't really understand why all this is happening. But hey, you're going to do something with this, God. I don't know exactly what that is, but you can do something. I by myself, I can't do anything with it.
Right.
It's so wild to me that in getting to know a little bit more about you and your job and listening to how you interact with everyone, whether they're Democrat or Republican, it's like, I feel like there's probably people that are like, I'm going to get into politics and I'm going to network with this guy and then I'm going to do this for this guy and kind of that. And it seems like you've gotten as far as you have and you've been reelected so many times just by seeing everybody in the Capitol building as the image of Christ and just treating everyone Christ-like.
Oh, let's not make me out to be a saint. There have been days where I have said things or treated somebody in an unchrist-like way.
Yeah.
And fortunately, they have shown me great mercy and forgiveness and allowed me to continue to talk to them and work with them, what have you. So, I mean, it's not a place where there's perfect people because there's no perfect person.
Right.
And so we're all just trying to do our best. And I'm trying to recognize that whenever somebody does something that is harmful, hurtful to me, that, hey, they're having a moment that's like the moment I had 2 days ago where I said something, did something I shouldn't have done, that I wish I could have a take back on. And that's the real thing, is trying to recognize if you ever want mercy and grace, you better be willing to extend it to somebody.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I come from a 12-step program. I'm 37 years sober. And when I got there, they told me it's principles before personalities. So every time I'd complain about somebody to my sponsor, he goes, what do you care? It's a personality. It's the principles. And you're to extend the same grace that has been extended to you. This is the first time I heard about it. When I read about it in the Bible years later, when I read that verse where Jesus said, be very careful, because what you use to judge another, I will use on you.
Yeah, you're looking at somebody else's eye. You better look at the log in yours.
That is pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
And
no pun intended.
And as someone who has committed felonies and just didn't get caught, when it comes to extending grace to felons for voting,
you're right there.
Yeah, I know. I performed at prisons and talked about my addictions and stuff. And my opening line was, "But for the grace of God, I'd be sitting where you're at." And
they were like, "Wait, what about me, God?"
But that's the Holy Spirit. On my best day, prior to that, I didn't see that. I couldn't see that. I was narrow-minded enough not know the depths of my depravity. And then, so when you're working with 132 other, I can't imagine personalities. How do you keep it focused on the principle of what you're trying to get through legislatively? Or, are you involved in legislation?
Oh yeah, we've got bills that we support. We've got bills that we oppose. We've got bills that we've asked other people to sponsor for us. It gets heated sometimes.
Yeah.
And just try to recognize that, hey, regardless of what the other person in opposition to me is saying about me, I know who I am. I know what I'm about. I know what I'm trying to accomplish, and just trying to get through that. And there have been some horrible things that have been posted about me, tweeted about me over the years. And I just, you tell yourself, hey, that's just not who I am. I mean, that might be that person's impression of me. If I ever had the opportunity to sit down with that person and I felt like they had an open mind and wanted to really hear from me, glad to have that. But, unfortunately, we also live in a world too now.
Do your kids read any of that? Are they old enough now?
Yeah. I've got a 22-year-old and a 17-year-old.
Yeah, so they can.
And my oldest was not really active on social media. He is very much an old soul. He's both of my children are believers, but never really got into social media and consuming it that way. My youngest, he's consumed a lot of social media, and I think it's probably been harder on him.
Today's podcast is brought to you by my good friend Jacob at Curtis Accounting Solutions. He's done my taxes for years. He's really done a good job actually of keeping me out of jail. So if you want to stay out of jail too, go to curtisaccountingsolutions.com for your free cash flow assessment and put in Proverbs 27:23, and we won't be felons, guys.
Do they talk about it at school? Is it
if they do, we don't. He hasn't really mentioned that to me, but there are things, even thinking about 2026 and possible political opportunities. He's asked, he'll ask me questions and says, "Hey, I read this. What are you thinking?" And
can I ask it? Are you running for governor? Am I allowed to ask that?
You can ask that. I don't have to answer.
Okay. I didn't even think. I wasn't even thinking to go in there. Wow, I'm really pissed.
Honestly, Carollynn, what I'm trying to figure out is what am I supposed to do with the rest of my life? What am I supposed to do with today? What does God have planned for me the next year? What's left me to do? And I think there's a lot left me to do. I don't know if that's politically. Don't know if there's something outside of politics I'm supposed to be doing. I really try each and every day to think about, what am I supposed to be doing? And what I'm trying to do for right now is put one foot in front of the other every day and trying to go be the best Secretary of State I can be, the best husband I can be, the best father I can be. And I'm trying to think about those things and hopeful that I'm smart enough to realize when God slaps me upside the head and said, "Hey, it was this. This is what you're supposed to go do."
Yeah.
Because, some of us are stupid enough, like me. I need to see a ram stumbling out of the bush. I need that. I need a burning bush running across the interstate to give me a sign.
Well, last week, that was probably a possibility.
So, I think about that. We're fortunate, though. There's a lot of great people in this state who are capable of being governor.
Yeah.
Who can go do a good job.
It sounds like he's going to be governor or plant a church, right? It's like, I can't tell. Is he going to be a pastor?
Well, I would tell you what, planting a church may be a lot more kingdom focused than being governor. So
yeah, that's so true.
So, that's really, at the end of the day, you're trying to figure out what God wants you to do. And I've used this expression a lot of times. I don't always get it right. But you're trying to put your head to God's chest and figure out what his heartbeat is for you.
Oh, I'm going to use that.
I'd be flattered if you did. I mean, and that's what, none of us get it right every day, or every hour even. But really, if you're trying to visualize that, in this moment, what would God want me to do? And then long term, what's he want me to open my heart to that I'm being calloused about? So, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I'm just trying to grow up like everybody else.
Yeah, we have a rule of 3 in our house. If we try to push our way through something, and usually financially, we would try to make some purchases, and we get the door shut 3 times. We just, okay.
Yeah.
Because the times we've pushed past, it never ended well.
We're actually all in the same scenario right now, because you were talking about, I wanted to be Secretary of State because I wanted to be home with my children when they were younger more. I stopped stand-up, which you guys know, to be home with my son. He's moving out of stand-up in time. He's on his farewell tour, potentially.
Not yet. Next year is my first farewell tour.
Farewell.
First one. Yeah,
I get it.
We're going to do 3 or 4.
It's one for the Rolling Stones.
But it's everybody. I'm just doing the first one.
His wife, Tammy, is like, I'd like to, see you in my lifetime.
Right.
And so we're all kind of in the same, where it's like, how do we build each other up and use our gifts that God has gifted us to help and serve the community in any way we can, but also put our family first and listen to that. And it's so difficult to have the discernment for that.
And not be selfish about it. Yeah. You know, I mean, I love when someone says, God told me to do, and then you go, boy, it sure worked out for you. You left the debris behind you, the whole family. And
I have a really good friend of mine who I have known for 30 plus years. I say 30, it's about 30 years that, you know, when people are getting ready to run for office, they'll say, well, you know, God really wants me to do this. And my friend says, why does God always tell people to run for jobs that pay $100,000, $100,000+, but never tells them to run for town aldermen that pay a few hundred a year?
Right.
Why is that?
Right.
We should maybe close on this unless you have another question, Jeff. But I was wondering, because I don't really understand how political stuff works. A lot of people think because I moved here and my Instagram presence that I moved here because I'm being a Republican conservative. I moved here because people were nice and there was no trash everywhere. And they were just, I wanted to raise my son here. So I want to get involved in community, like my community. I know I can make a difference there. So how would you recommend, what boards do I go to? What do I start to not be just help my community? How do I start? Where do people start that want to help their communities politically, whether it's the school or whatever?
Yeah, so politically, I tell people that, you know, start off by talking to your local alderman or your county commissioner and just telling them, saying, hey, I have a heart for this, whether it's parks, whether it's if you have a passion for wastewater, you know, whatever you have a passion for, and go to say, hey, I think I'm good at this.
Somewhere somebody's watching this going, that's it.
Yeah.
Yes. I've been waiting. I've been praying.
This is my sign.
This is it. Wastewater. I couldn't put words to it.
Talk to them and said, hey, I'm interested in plugging in. And here are things I like. Here are things I don't like. If you see an opportunity for me to plug in, let me know.
Yeah, I have to figure out what an alderman is, but I'll figure out if
typically an alderman is like a city councilman.
Well, in Chicago, they're pretty powerful.
You know, and you know, and if that person never calls you back or doesn't really follow up, you know, go see another county commissioner or go see the mayor. I mean,
Holdenwall, not too powerful.
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah. Little difference between Holdenwall and Chicago, isn't it?
Well, that's not fair. When they get caught in Chicago, they get moved to Holdenwall.
They get moved to Holdenwall.
So I tell people that. I mean, and you may wind up getting, and you can tell the mayor, your town says, hey, or city manager, I'd love to serve on a board. If you think I know you're always looking for people who are willing to serve on these unpaid boards, but I can do research. I'm willing to study. I want to make good, intelligent decisions. You know, how can I help move this city, or how can I help move this county forward? Yeah. You know, look for opportunities like that.
I'm going to get my alderman.
Yeah. Well, we have a guy at our church that I got to know very well. He was running for city commissioner in Fairview, and I said, "That's great. I mean, that's basically a volunteer job. I mean, you're not making any money on it, and I want to give back, and I just travel too much. But again, I'm kind of in your boat. I'm 68 years old. I've been doing this for 40 whatever years. What does the next 5 years look like? That's when I called Carollynn about doing the podcast. Was like, at least we can maybe we'll see where this goes. But I do want to see my wife, and I do want to spend time with her, and
not just next to her plot.
Right. Well, that's what and she is. She's pretty direct. Like I have a gene that is a precursor to Alzheimer's, and sugar feeds it. So every time I have a cookie, she goes, "Oh, that's okay. You don't remember your grandchildren's names. That's all right."
Carollynn, I want to correct you on something. I did not go from the legislature to the Secretary of State's office. I actually retired and went back to the private sector full time.
Really?
And didn't think I was going to return.
Really?
I was
what
done.
were you doing in the private sector?
I was vice president of a publicly traded ambulance company.
Oh,
that's really exciting. I know. And really thought I was done with politics, and got a phone call from Lieutenant Governor's chief of staff. Several conversations occurred, and they asked me to come back in an appointed role that he appointed, confirmed by the legislature. And I really thought, hey, I've got a 6-year term. I'll just go do that, and I'll go back to the private sector. And about 11 months later, I became Secretary of State.
How did that? If we have time, I know you're on we're on a time crunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, How do you want to close us up?
What do you got? So anyways, is this your last term?
Well, I just got reelected this
reelected,
one.
So that's right, because you said when
I'm
still going to be midterm.
Yeah, I've still got 40 plus months.
And you got a new governor
left in this one.
And I'm dying to know how you became, is it quick? Can you share it quick? How you ended up Secretary of State?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, I had several friends who were in the legislature who said, hey, we think you'd be a great Secretary of State if we get control of the legislature. Republicans gained control of the legislature in November 2008. Yeah. And there's a lot more of the story, but at the end of the day, I wound up winning that race. And I said, hey, if you think I'm the best person for the job, then vote for me. You think you can hire somebody else who'll do it better, you should vote for them.
Yeah.
And it all worked out.
I love that. Okay, so it'll be listed where people can find you. And then you and another senator gave me the most beautiful Capitol tour ever. And your wife was there. Can people tour the Capitol?
Yeah, absolutely. They can tour the Capitol. It's open every business day. Tours at 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, and 3. It's open to the public free of charge.
And can't they come watch Congress do their thing?
They can come watch the Senate. They do have a ticketing process in the House now. But certainly they're welcome to go and watch the proceedings. They can watch committees. They can watch in the full chunk.
They can watch your government at work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when people watch that too, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised how few things break down on partisan issues. There are so many decisions each and every day that Republicans and Democrats work together to find the right solution on.
Right. But that doesn't make news.
No, that's a man bites dog story.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Amen.
Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, my privilege, Jeff. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Right. Thank you, Carollynn.
It's so good to see you again.
She's a fangirl.
I am. I'm such a fangirl. He's so funny. I love him so
I
much.
just worry this is the death of your podcast with me on it. So I'm looking for the rebound.
If we haven't killed it by now.
I'm looking for the rebound, the next one after me.
No, you're amazing. This is great. So fun.
Thank you so much. And we need you to subscribe wherever that is. Hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, Jeff's trying to retire.
We need you to download it. That's important. It changes the algorithm. Download it. We don't even care if you listen to it. Just download it. Give it a 5-star review because you know, and I know, nobody likes a whiner. Okay? Yeah. So give it a 5-star review. And
God bless you guys. Be safe.
And we will see you next week. God bless you.
Today's podcast is brought to you by my good friends at Innovative Dental. Don't look too close to my teeth because I kind of just had lunch. But if you look at my old videos and my new videos, my teeth are totally straight now. And you're like, Carollynn, you live in Nashville, Tennessee. Why'd you go all the way to Springfield, Missouri? Because there is one great, amazing dentist, Dr. Olson. I mean, I only needed braces, but they do full cosmetic dentistry. And when you go there, you get your own room, like your own private room to get a bunch of dental work. I almost wish my teeth were more messed up just to hang out in the fancy I need a lot of dental work room. So go to idspringfield.com for the greatest dental work you'll ever get.